so for in this session, what we're going to be covering is Apptivo's online invoice solution. So it's part of Apptivo's suite of cloud business applications, although invoicing can totally be used on its own. So what we'll do is we'll kind of introduce you to the product itself. We'll talk about Apptivo as a whole, and then hopefully at the end of this session, you have a good feel for what Apptivo's invoicing solution can do, and go ahead and get started yourself. All right, so let's just get started off with what is Apptivo. So Apptivo is this integrated suite of business applications. So we can do things of all different kinds for different types of businesses. So we have a CRM system for driving sales, we have project management tools, tools to track your product database, purchasing, inventory, things like that. And then we have a financials area. And then one of the applications in financials is invoicing. And really, invoicing is one of the basic things that pretty much every single type of business needs out there. And it's also one of the very first things that every type of business is going to need when they get set up. So invoicing, it's a very critical solution. It's underneath our financials category. And then there's a couple apps that kind of naturally pair up with the solution. So definitely you can go in there. Apptivo is structured kind of like an app store where when you get set up, you're just like your mobile phone, you're able to hop into the store and just add any apps that you like. So you can absolutely deploy Apptivo as a point solution, do nothing but sending and receiving payments from your customers, or you could go deploy it as either an intermediary solution, like let's say you have some basic sales in there, or you can go a full end-to-end solution where you're tracking sales and then tracking the time and materials you spend on your jobs and doing quotes, and then turning all that time and materials and effort you tracked into an invoice and delivering customer support. We really offer the whole package. But the key idea is invoicing is what we're talking about today. The invoicing application, it's on our latest V6 technology, so it looks great. It's on a fully responsive design, and it does have a native mobile app for both iOS and Android that allows you to send and see invoices on the fly, everything like that. And then there are some just core integrations, like there's a full API to integrate our invoices elsewhere. We do have a connection to QuickBooks for exporting data, and we also have a full set of activity management and collaboration tools like document management and such, and a bunch of cool little integrations there, like connecting to Google Drive or Dropbox or something. So, yep, as we mentioned, Apptivo, it's a cloud system and it's mobile friendly, meaning as long as you have an email and password, you're going to be able to get to your invoices, you're going to be able to send invoices and take care of everything that your business needs to. It doesn't matter about the size of your screen, although definitely the mobile apps are optimized for touchscreen devices, so they're a little bit nicer experience, but yep, doesn't matter where you go, you'll be able to get your information. And just to give you a feel for kind of where Apptivo is, well, we're all over. So we are in pretty much every country out there. We fit all shapes and sizes of businesses. So we match just about every single industry, and we have people from independent consultants up to multi-billion-dollar businesses using Apptivo. So let's just talk a little bit about the features inside of Invoices V6. And really, we're going to dive into the detail here, but when it comes down to kind of breaking down what you're going to be doing in invoices is we've got these kind of 4 high-level categories of you can send invoices out, you can get paid, track the payments, going and integrating outward, and then going and just having general productivity tools. So when we look at this, we're able to send invoices out from the system, so we'll be able to create a standard professional-looking invoice. There's a PDF designer, so we can make it look however we want. And the system's just built in to automatically create like a web page where the customer can view it online, and they can also download the PDF at any time. Other than that, we have some other cool tools, like there's connectors to the other apps, which we'll talk about, but we do have recurring invoices, meaning you can actually just set up a one-time payment. We have subscription payment integrations with a couple providers, or you could just set up the system to automatically generate an invoice and queue it up for your financials team to send out at the beginning of every month or whatever period you specify. So you've got that, and then there's the details around getting paid. So what we have is we have automatic reminders. So when an invoice goes overdue, you can have the system automatically send notifications to either you or to the customer directly. We do have integrations, so we connect with PayPal, Zipmark, and Authorize.net. And of course, you can manually track payments. There's just a whole engine where you can do partial payments. We have a credit note system, everything like that. And you can also apply late payment penalties, which is a pretty cool feature where you can say if an invoice is more than 10 days overdue, I'm going to add 5% to the available balance. And that can just be built right into the system, and it'll apply it for you automatically. Plus, we did just launch our new ledger application. So there's a component of accounting integration there, although really on the next side item, a lot of people definitely leverage our QuickBooks. We have an IIF export, which will take your data straight into QuickBooks for the accounting needs. But then really the big thing is we have all these other apps that kind of they plug right into your invoicing process. So when you think about it, I sent an invoice, a lot of companies have already generated an estimate or a quote ahead of time. Or when you look at the details stored on your invoice, a lot of the time those are like hours that you had tracked in a project or another piece of software. So that's one of the things that Apptivo really specializes in, is our invoicing app connects to all of our other apps that help you track the delivery and fulfillment of your services or products. So that way, if you have a sales order system and you're doing shipments, well, Apptivo has apps to do orders and shipments, but instead of manually copying the data from your order to your invoice, instead you simply go and you select an order and ask to generate an invoice from it. So just a little bit different, interconnecting all of your data. And then there is just the core CRM integration. So I'll show you how our invoicing module plugs right on top of the customer record that your entire organization can use. And it allows for some pretty cool things, which I'll show you like one of the first things right out of the gate. And then on the last item, so yeah, we talked about the mobile integration and such. One of the things to kind of take note of is the integration with like your email and your calendar and such services. So Apptivo has this whole, we call it contextual collaboration. It's this whole suite of just general tools, like, okay, adding a note on an invoice that tells them that the customer called in and said, hey, I'm actually going to be late 2 weeks, so you just want to put a note of when you spoke to them and all that. So we just have a suite of tools to help manage like that communication and note-taking and such. But then specifically, we have a bunch of two-way syncs with Google. So like, let's say, for example, if you put a reminder on a calendar, like a calendar event on an invoice, to call them about an overdue invoice. Maybe they just wanted to chat about it. They had some discrepancy with the pricing. So you could put a reminder in, and then we actually go and sync it directly to Google, and it goes onto your Google Calendar. And then with the email integration, this part's pretty cool. So definitely we send emails straight out from inside of Apptivo, but we'll connect to your email server, meaning when you send an invoice from Apptivo, it'll appear in the sent folder of your email client. Plus, we can actually capture email conversations. So I'll show you this. When I deliver an invoice to my customer, we stamp it with this special ID number. So the responses to the invoice, let's say if they asked a question about it, it would actually be captured inside of the invoice itself. So you'll get a full communication history right alongside the rest of your invoice data. So as far as like a high-level overview of what features we have inside of the platform, that kind of covers them. So let's go ahead, let's switch gears, let's get into the application and go show you around. All right, so I'm in here in a loosely configured Apptivo system. So in this example, we're logged in as Lori Michelson up here, and we're going to want to run through the invoicing. So up across the top of the page, you see I have all my apps enabled. The idea is that there's kind of that core set of collaboration features. So if I had a reminder on an invoice, it would appear in my calendar area right now. I'll show you how to use that. And then you have the different apps that you've enabled up here. So the Invoices app is the primary app in the solution, but even if you're not planning to use the full CRM, you're still going to use the Customers app and potentially the Items application, which is underneath Product Management. I actually don't have that enabled here. But the idea is that these are kind of supporting applications where you'll actually have one app that lists every customer that you interact with. And the idea is that when you send an invoice, you're simply going to select from this existing list of customers rather than retyping any sort of information. And then just so you know, these customers are used all over the place. So if we switch over to the Invoices app, we'll get into what we're all expecting during this session. And I'll just kind of quickly go and show you the creation page. Let's go generate a quick little invoice and just kind of run through the components. So when you generate an invoice in Apptivo, first thing you see is right up here, it will allow you to go back and select that appropriate customer. So it's all using modern technology. Just start typing in their name, it'll pop them up. And then if you're dealing with organizations, what will happen is as soon as you select the customer, it'll automatically know which contacts that you have there, allow you to select one. And then some things that are happening are, you might see like the phone number and email ID and payment term. All of these are actually driven based off the customer. So the idea is that you can have like one central set of information for billing details, how often you bill them. There's even some other cool things on like price lists, like giving special pricing to each different type of customer. But as you fill in the form, it just pulls that all from the CRM, and if you had like multiple phone numbers or emails, it would allow you to select them from right here. And then we go down and fill it all in. So this is kind of a common theme throughout Apptivo, is we'll put the data in a bunch of different apps, but it doesn't matter. You can do everything from this page. So let's say if this is the first time that you're logging in, you've never created anything, you can actually come in here and just create your first invoice. You don't have to go through any configuration. So for example, that customer, let's say if I didn't have one yet, I can actually just click on this create button right here, and it will give me the form. So I can input a brand new customer record without leaving the page, it'll store it in that customer's app so I can go look them up later on, and I've got that central database of information. But it keeps it all perfectly handy, so I can just continue with my job and get this invoice out the door. So we can go fill that all in. Apptivo does support multiple different currencies, and we actually have a conversion table built in. So if you need to invoice in another currency, what will happen is we'll flip it. It'll show you the other currencies you have enabled, and then it would actually go and convert the values. And when you go look at like reporting and such, everything will be reported back to your base currency. Otherwise, you'll see that you are able to have multiple different PDF templates. So I'll show you that in a moment, how the kind of PDF template works. And you can also customize any other details you want. So you'll see a lot of the standard stuff like invoice number, the date, payment term, being able to discount at a fixed price or a percentage. But you can actually go and add in your own fields. So actually this invoice type field is something that I put in here because this sample business is like a photography company, and they sometimes do like corporate photography, sometimes they work with schools, sometimes they work with individuals for like just like high school senior photos, something like that. So for them, it's important to be able to create lists and differentiate between invoices sent to those different types. So what you have here is they actually have a drop-down menu with these values, and this is a custom field. So you can create your own drop-down menus, you can put your own date fields, you can put your own big text boxes if you want. It's all fully customizable to you. And it's actually done through a nice little drag and drop editor where really anybody can do it. You don't need any sort of technical skill. So as far as what you see here, yep, we've got all the basics handled for you right when you get set up, but you can basically tear this thing apart and really make your own solution. So otherwise, what we'll have is we have a couple different fields of information. So like we can link it to a sales rep. These are just more details that are automatically pulled off that customer account. And then you have the different lines that get put on here. So by default, it'll say services and products, but you'll notice you can change it to whatever you want. So in this example, I've created services included, like a standard services section, plus any additional ad hoc services. So what you'll see is this one is set up to pull from your main database of items. And just like the customers, although there's an app called Items where you can store everything, and I can just have predefined lists and grab packages, and you can do hourly services or you can do physical products. I could also create a brand new one right from here. I don't have to go to the Items app to create it. Or I can just punch in an hourly service. I could just say general consulting. Let's say we did 5 hours of that, and we're going to charge them $80 per hour. So you can also just do freehand write-in like that, very, very simple. And then when it comes down to building out each line, you also do have tax codes built in. So we've got tax code configuration to support really anything around the world, whether it's additional green fees, whether you have a complex stacked tax code like the HST in Canada, or whether you just have very simple tax codes like a sales tax in California. So you just plug those in, and then the system does all the calculations for you automatically down here at the bottom. But really, there's a lot more you could do. So one thing I do want to point out is the flexibility of the technology, where let's say you're looking at this and you are doing a business, like you're a fencing business, so you don't track hours, you don't really track quantity, you track like how many meters of fence or how many feet of fence that I'm selling. So in my business, I need to change these columns, I need to change this, and I'm never going to have a decimal point, I'm always going to have a whole number. So actually all these little details are customizable by you, and that's all done through the layout editor. So when we talk about like how an invoice is structured, I'm going to hop in there in just a moment, and I'll show you how you can have complete control. Although all the formulas are built in for you automatically of how we calculate the totals, you could even create an additional like add-on service fee right here, and you can actually update the formulas that we have in the system to match what you want to do. So very, very powerful there. But let's go ahead and let's send this invoice out. Let's get one invoice out there. We'll just have one service. And you'll see I've got one custom field right here where you have like a gold package, but then the head count is not changing the overall price. And let's just go ahead and we'll email that out. Okay, so when you hit the email button, this will tap into our standard email integration. So you can have one or many email templates, although there is a standard template provided for you. And what you'll see is it'll automatically send it to the customer record because we know their address. You can also configure multiple from addresses. So some companies might want to send from their personal email. Some companies might have a central email like billing@apptivo.com, and you can configure those. Then inside of the message that you send out, you'll see that we give them a nice little friendly message, but then this is a hyperlink. So the user can actually open up the email, like let's say on their cell phone, and click on this hyperlink, and it would take them to a web page they can view from anywhere. And also, they can just view inside of the email. You'll see we actually print the entire details of the email right here inside. In addition to that, we attach a PDF file. So we basically give every possible way that your customer might want to look at this invoice. We give them those options. And then here's like the web page. So if they clicked on that link in the web page, you can scroll down, you can see the different options here. But if you have, let's say, PayPal or Authorize.net or Zipmark, one of our 3 integrated payment providers, it'll actually offer them a button right there to complete the payment process. So if you integrate with PayPal, for example, and they pay through PayPal, our system will automatically be notified when the invoice is paid. We'll automatically go send a receipt out to the client showing them that everything is done, and you don't have to do anything. And so in that scenario, it's very, very seamless, but of course some of you do wire transfers or you take a check payment, something where the system can't integrate and pick it up. So of course, once you send an invoice out from the backend, you'll be able to go and just record a payment. So I've just created that invoice, and then we've got it set up right here. And then you'll see I've had the option to record a payment. So you can always come view the details of an invoice. Let's say if I drafted one up, it's really easy to come make changes in the software. You just click on a field, make your adjustments, and save it once you're done. But then across the top, you have all these tabs of other different information. So one of them is the Payments tab. So we'd just be able to see there's no payments, and you can record one from here. But we always, all over the place, will give you little shortcuts. So right up on top, I can hit Record Payment, or maybe the customer needs another copy of the invoice, so we allow you to resend it, or anytime you can just download the PDF to your computer. So just like the customer can get the PDF, you can get the PDF as well. And you'll notice it just follows the same design that we had seen on the web link. And then back inside of here, I can go and just record my payments. Say that they gave me a check on this date. Maybe it was check number 506. And then we do support partial payments. So you can either choose whether the invoice should be fully paid or not. And then that will determine whether we turn the invoice into a receipt. So once you mark off an invoice as paid, our system will actually update it. So if you go print the PDF, you'll just notice it has a built-in functionality to notify them of their paid invoice and give them a receipt. So right, this is just a combined flow where it'll open up the email window. You'll see that the invoice is automatically updated to say paid. It'll show a balance of 0. And then anytime from here on out, if either of you prints out this PDF file, you'll see it reflects the same exact clear payment status. Okay, so that's your general flow. Gets all paid off. You're all kind of set at that point. So let's go talk a little bit more about like the ongoing management. I want to show you a little bit of the configuration and then a little bit more of kind of like the standard day-to-day stuff. So we'll go ahead, let's talk a little bit on the day-to-day, and then we'll go look at the configuration. So once we get the invoice out there, I mean, there's all sorts of kind of accounts receivable type activities. Like, okay, well, how do I see which invoices are overdue? How do I just see which invoices are unpaid at this moment? How do I report on how much revenue I've received during a period? All these sorts of general questions. And then there's the other details of, hey, I have to discuss this one invoice. I need to call on this invoice and track my reminders and anything like that. So what you have is, on the details of every invoice, you have this common set of collaboration tools. So you'll actually have a calendar of follow-ups and tasks, although you can disable every one of these features if you choose to in the configuration. So that way, if you wanted to come in and let's say you give them a call and we try to call them, it's an overdue invoice. I can just say call for overdue invoice. And I can go take some notes on it, record it away for later. So just a way for you to capture every time you've attempted to contact them. And then maybe I choose to send like an email follow-up. So using the email integration right here, I can send a standard email message. We could program in templates and such. Or I could just put in a reminder, like maybe we got a hold of them and they asked for me to call them back at tomorrow at 2 p.m. So I could use the calendar feature. I could just come tomorrow at, I clicked 1 p.m., but we'll click 2 p.m. And I can just go schedule in that call about overdue invoice. So the way that these activities work is I can be doing all this work here, and then maybe I use these other tabs. So there's an area for notes. Maybe I had taken some general notes. You'll see some notes get automatically published, but I could just say she thought the fees were too high. So you can take this sort of information down. You'll see the system will just like timestamp and show you who had posted it in there. And then you also have an area to store any sort of files. So if they sent you any sort of files, I can upload from my computer or from like a Dropbox account or something like that. I just happen to enable it here. But you've got all that type of activity. But for the reminder system, the way that those work is I just put in a calendar reminder to follow up on this invoice. So the first thing you saw when you logged in is actually your dashboard. So if you've tagged any invoices with reminders, you'll actually see them present right here. So the idea is that I can click on this, say, oh, I've got to call them about that invoice. But down here, it has this hyperlink called associated with. So it says that this reminder is for invoice 1005, meaning, well, I want to see what that invoice is about, when we spoke last, everything like that. And that's where kind of the CRM type component comes up in Apptivo. So the idea is I click to this invoice. What Apptivo is all about is giving you all the information you need and making it immediately accessible. So on the invoice, I have a couple tools here. We just saw there's like notes and documents and such, but there's this cool feature called Newsfeed. The newsfeed will track all of the updates that are performed. So instead of clicking through each tab to say what's been going on, you click on the newsfeed, and here you can get a chronological breakdown of every update that's happened. So when did we create it? When did we send it? Did we schedule a reminder? Did we add a note to it? All that will be captured right here, and the same thing is timestamped and tagged with who performed it. Then there's actually other ways to go look at this as well. So one thing you might need is I need the person's phone number. Okay, it might be present right here, but maybe this is like the billing, their office number, and I want Cindy's cell phone number. So you actually have all the CRM data at your fingertips right there, where we have one kind of profile for the organization or the customer, and then one profile for each person or contact. So I can actually click on this is a school right there, and then you'll see all the information we have inside of the CRM. So I can see their billing information or any fields that I have configured over in there. So I can see that they're a school as an organization. Or I can click on Cindy, and now I get all of her personal information. So in this case, I don't have her cell phone number, but if I did, I'd be able to view it right here. And then it even goes one step further. So with the email, when you send emails, you'll be able to capture it and see it from inside of the tab right here. And if they respond to it, you will be able to see their email responses in this email tab. But that will be like specific to that one invoice. There's actually a place in the system that'll capture just every email that you communicate with every contact. So what I could do is I could say, show me every email I've ever sent to Cindy before. So if I click here to the details of Cindy, it's all interconnected, but this actually switches me into the Contacts app, which is part of our CRM. But what you have here is a couple really cool tools. So one is you have a newsfeed on Cindy. So Cindy's newsfeed is going to show integrations with the other apps. You'll see like opportunity updates and such coming in here. Cindy's email tab, well, I don't have anything with her, but it would actually show every email you've ever received from her or sent to her right here. And that happens 100% automatically. The idea is that once you put a contact's email into the system, we'll track every email that you have with them. So that way you have one view to say, show me the emails about this invoice, and then another view to say, show me the emails about this contact. And then you can also do the same thing. Show me the invoices for this contact, or show me all the information for this contact or account. So everything is basically just visible by associations. Apptivo is all about linking your data together to help you make the right choices. So you have here is called a 360 view. And what this does is, if I look at a Contacts 360, you'll see all of our apps. So if you use other apps, like let's say you use Estimates, which is closely paired up with Invoicing, it just allows you to send a quote, and you can turn a quote into an invoice. If I had any, it would actually show a list of them right there. But in this example, we did have an invoice with her. So immediately from the contact, I can see an invoice history. And then the cool part is you can also see it at the customer level. So in this case, I've only sent one invoice to Foothill High School to Cindy, but I could have sent multiple. Maybe over time you sent 5 invoices to contact A and then 4 invoices to contact B. So what would happen is at the customer level, you'd be able to see both of them. But at the contact level, you would only see the invoices that were individually addressed to that one person that you were talking to. So you can just flip through app by app, you find all that information, and then things like the news feed and all that, they're fully centralized. So right here, when I look at the customer newsfeed, it has more data than either the invoice or the contact did, because it will aggregate everything together. Okay, so that's basically as much as I wanted to show you in kind of the general day-to-day activities and such, and I want to end this off with just a little bit of the configuration. So I talked about when you're inputting an invoice, you can control this however you want. So the idea is when you have the details on an invoice, and when you're looking through like a list of your invoices, you can totally change all this. So the Invoices app has a very large amount of settings you can change. So it's everything from like connecting your payment gateways to changing what billing terms you want to have available, everything like that, and configuring email templates. Like, yeah, as you can see here, there's like 30 some odd different settings pages that you have available. But the big one right here is master layout. Really, master layout, print web layout, and list layouts make up a large part of your configuration. So this master layout is a drag and drop editor that allows you to update, delete, or create any new fields. This is where you can come in and you could even change formulas and such. So what you'll see is when you look down here, like at our total amount on the services included, it actually shows you that it's multiplying the item quantity times the item rate. But what you could do is you can be changing the labels of these fields, which we have. You could even come in and you could go edit this formula. In this case, it wouldn't be recommended, but that gives you an idea of some people actually have really complex invoices where you don't just multiply quantity times amount. You might need to multiply 3 or 4 different numbers and add on an add-on service or something like that. So what you can actually do is, yeah, you can add like a single text field up on top. Like if I wanted to add an extra, like an internal notes section right here, I can just drag it on over, call it internal notes, no problem. It shows up to all my employees right away. But then potentially you want to add a field onto every single line that comes onto the invoice. So right here, I added the head count value. I could actually add like a drop-down menu or something. So I can come in here, I can add a drop-down menu or a number, and we could create a drop-down menu that appears on each line, and we can basically just call it like status or confirmed, or we could add any sort of information we want. So maybe right here what we're doing is we've got like packages, but then we're just saying like number of photographers. And we could have 1, 2, or 3 plus. So I can just build that in, and then you'll see that because I put it into that table, every time I add a new product onto my invoice, I'm going to be able to go and type in that number of photographers. So you see the system is very, very flexible and easy to build, and really this is just the basics of it. There's some very advanced things that you can do, such as adding conditions, where upon selecting individual or organization, I can make additional fields down below hide or become read only, something like that. I could also change the values of this drop down menu. Like let's say if you select individual, I can make the number of photographers only display 1. So that's actually, it's all still drag and drop. We're not talking any sort of programming here, but I'll go show you that real quick just so you can get a quick taste of really the power. So Apptivo is designed to be really, really simple. You can get going. You can create your first invoice in a minute, but you could also go spend years customizing this. There's really an unlimited number of options. So here, we'll give you one little taste, and then I'll just show you the other 2 components, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So number of photographers. You see I've got my values there. There's all these different settings that you can control about each field. One of them would be value restriction. So here, watch this. I'm actually going to create a condition that says, based on the selection of the organization field. So we'll come up, we'll find our, it's invoice type. So we're going to say, invoice type, if the value is set to individual, the only attribute values I want in this dropdown is just 1. I'm only going to allow 1. But, or if the invoice type is set to organization, then I'm going to allow any of those values. So I'll allow 1, 2, or 3 plus. I could even do something like maybe it's always 2 or 3 plus for organization, or it's always 1 for individual. So you actually just do that. You just click a couple buttons and look at what we've just done inside of the actual UI. So now is where you're really starting to get advanced of, okay, it's an organization. I've only got 2 and 3 plus. Now you flip it on over to individual, and now I've just got 1 available. So you can do some really, really cool things with this platform. The idea is you get all your fields configured in the app, then we do allow you to manage many different presentations. So that PDF file and the web link that we send to your customers, you could have, maybe you have a couple different types of products that you sell. So you want to have a different presentation for each. You can do all of that. And then it also allows you to say, well, which fields do I actually want visible to the user? So a moment ago, we just added a custom field called internal notes. But until I go add it into my print
layout, it won't be visible to the customer. So they'll never see it. They're only going to see the notes to customer, which I've chosen to show them. But then you'll see here you have like the same kind of attribute editor. So every field that you store on the customer or contact is selectable, and every field you store on the invoice is selectable. So you can get an idea of really how much power you have over how you present these out to your customers. And yeah, there's even a code editor. So if you want to directly update JSON, you can come and update that. That's way more advanced. Okay, so that's basically you get all the fields in order. And the last thing I want to show you is like list layouts and views. So what you have is like a standard set of columns that are displayed whenever you're browsing a list of invoices. So by default, it'll look pretty good. But let's just take that invoice type example. Well, in this business, invoice type is really important. So what I can actually do is I can come and I can remove all these fields and make it show only what I think is important. So what I'm actually going to do is like remove created by and all this stuff. Maybe I'll remove currency, that, and we'll come in, we'll add in like the invoice type, and maybe we want to add in like the balance and the total. You can resize it just like Excel. I'm doing all this stuff one time, and now every single time you browse through a list, you can see the new effect. So you can totally change your layout here, and you can actually create custom lists over in the left column. So check this out. I can search, because I created that field for organization, I can filter everybody who's an organization invoice. I've already got my layout correct, so I could save this away as a view, call it my org invoices. I would have the option to share it with others, and that actually puts a custom list right over here. You can actually, I did it before. But the idea is that, yep, base product will work great right out of the box. You have unpaid, you have overdue, you have different built-in reports. So like in here, you can come in and run like tax reports, or there's an invoice summary report that'll just show you like how much revenue and such you've collected during a period. But using that ability to filter your invoices based on whatever criteria you want, and then display whatever columns you want, that's really powerful, and you can do a lot of reporting just from that. Okay, so that's going to go ahead and wrap up this session for today. So thank you very much for attending. If you want to find more information on the invoicing solution, you can definitely check out our YouTube channel, or you can hop on over to the help and move into the user manual section on our website. And of course, our top quality support. If you have any questions, definitely just reach out right here. If anybody who's attending this session would like to get a personal one-on-one demo, we like to offer it at the end of each webinar. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to be sending a quick follow-up to everybody right after this session. Just simply respond back to that email with your interest, and we'll go ahead and we'll get you scheduled in. So once again, thank you everybody for attending, and we'll catch you next time.